Hello, thank you for joining us on the fresh edition of the program Housing Development. I am your housing diva, Fleur Annie. The United Nations designated the first Monday of October of every year as World Habitat Day to reflect on the state of our towns and cities and on the basic right of all to adequate shelter. The day is also intended to remind the world that we all have the power and the responsibility to shape the future of our cities and towns. The theme for this year's World Habitat Day is accelerating urban action for a carbon-free world. How to make the world affordably carbon-free is very crucial at this time. Since information rules the world, let us start off with the news updates. Enjoy some important highlights of the happenings within the housing sector.
Housing Development Advocacy Network, HDAN, wishes Nigerians, especially those in the housing sector, a happy 61st Independence Anniversary. In a statement released in Abuja on Friday, 1st October, HDAN called on those in charge of policy management implementation to show sincerity of purpose and adopt a more sustainability-focused approach to housing finance and development in the country. As Nigerians roll out drums to celebrate the nation's 61st independence, the government must put the interest of the ordinary Nigerian at the forefront, most especially in the area of home ownership. Government must be committed in tackling and eradicating all forms of political, socio-economic, and all diverse problems. In the course of that, the level of insecurity and crime will be reduced in the country, the statement added. The Federal Capital Territory Administration has commenced the provision of 4,104 affordable houses for staff of the administration as part of activities to commemorate Nigeria's 61st Independence Anniversary. The project, according to the FCT Minister of State, Dr. Ramatu Aliyu, was a bold step by the administration toward addressing the deficit in the housing sector, especially among civil servants. In a statement by the Minister's Special Assistant on Media, Austin Elemwe, Aliyu said she performed the official site handover and groundbreaking ceremony of Muhammadu Buhari Staff Affordable Housing Estate in Karachi to mark the commencement of the project. She assured members of staff that modalities had been put in place to guarantee accessibility and affordability to deserving beneficiaries, including funding and repayment arrangements with primary mortgage institutions. Nigeria's housing deficit of over 20 million units can be reduced if access to a functioning and affordable mortgage system improves, according to Mustafa Unje, Group Managing Director, TAF Africa Global. According to him, access to cheap finance can enable the development of properties that will be affordable for many of Nigeria's middle class or even the low-income earners. He further stated that housing prices can come down in Nigeria if we have access to affordable mortgages, noting there is also a need for a partnership with multilaterals that can offer affordable financing to enable off-takers to pay less for housing properties.
For full details of the news, do well to visit www.africanhousingnews.com. In the face of several buildings springing up across Nigeria, many citizens still roam the streets homeless. This raises an important question that should be answered. Affordable housing. What must state governors do to provide affordable housing in their various states? Well, let's find out with Professor Charles Inyangete, the CEO of Innovative Risks and Investment Solutions Limited.
Right, absolutely. There's a lot that the state government and the governors can do to make housing more affordable. let's look at the affordability contribution that they can make. Readily providing land, say for example, for the social housing that's being done without much strings attached. Land in good quality locations, not land in locations that are distant, land in locations where the people can be close to the source of income or economic activity would be very, very important. Also, governors can make a huge contribution via the various charges that are state-based. I'll give you an example. When you look at the governor's consent, there's an average of about 8%. You look at the legal fees, about 7.5%. Land registration, about 3%. Stamp duty, 3%. Mortgage registration, about 5% or thereabouts. When you add those state-based charges, they all come to about 26.5%. That's pretty high. Whereas if governors were to choose to defray some of these, say for example, if the governor's consent were to be reduced to just say about 1%, because you want to still make revenue, and the legal charges to say 1.5%, and the others at just over 0.5% each, you can bring down that 26.5% to about 5.5%. That would be a huge contribution. It's within the powers of governors to do this. And so every governor in this nation ought to really think carefully about their role in addressing housing issues. They have a lot of powers and they need to use those powers judiciously. And so I would really implore every governor to address the issue of housing as a top priority and a way of leaving a legacy.
Professor Charles Inyangete there, speaking of practical solutions that state governors can adopt to make affordable housing a reality in their various states. Let's go for a short break. I'll be back in a moment.
Let's make welcome our woman crush this Wednesday, Barrister Oluwakemi Olomola Shijuade. Oluwakemi Shijuade is a detailed and results-oriented professional. She holds a national diploma in estate management. She also obtained a Bachelor of Law degree from the University of Wolverhampton, United Kingdom, and Barrister at Law from the Nigerian Law School. Amazingly, Oluwakemi has attended a wide range of management development programs and training courses, such as leadership and strategic management, women in management, United Kingdom in 2010, amongst others. Oluwakemi Olomola Shijuade belongs to several prominent professional business associations, notable amongst which are Real Estate Lawyers Association of Nigeria, Real Estate Developers Association of Nigeria, Female Lawyers in Real Estate Practice, to mention a few. Meanwhile, she is married with children. Her interests includes traveling, reading, and playing tennis. These are reasons that stands Oluwakemi Olomola Shijuade out as our woman crush this Wednesday.
You're watching Housing Development. One major area of contention between landlords and tenants has been quit and eviction notice. Is it right for a landlord to forcefully evict his tenant? Have you had such an experience? Why not share your experience with us on our social media pages displayed on your TV screen, or send a mail to housingprogram@gmail.com. In the meantime, let's find out what others think on Voices on the Street.
To me, I don't think it's right. Normally, you have to follow due process by involving the authorities like a law court for them to evict a tenant, not the landlord taking law by his hands. I think the government should try to see that landlords are made to follow the law. They should be enforced to take back the tenant until the tenant is legally or rightfully evicted from the house.
No, not at all. It's not right for a landlord to forcefully evict his tenants from the house. At least I believe they should give them a quit notice. And if that time elapses, maybe he can give a little more time. But just to come and just evict, where would they expect the tenant to sleep? They would render the tenant homeless. It's not right at all. I think the government should set a law, and should make sure that the landlords abide by the law. I think that's the best thing to do.
In my own opinion, it's right. Yes, because see, most of those tenants, they are wicked. One, they know the law that you can't throw their things. They will not pay you. Even when you take them to a station, they will give you time. Giving you time, they are not paying you. You use maybe the money you use in building this, you plan it that from this you'll be paying your children's school fee, you'll be feeding your family. But somebody just occupy your house, not paying you. You understand? Maybe at the end of the day, he damages the house when he's going, and still you didn't get that money. So if today somebody is living in my house, is not paying me, in fact, I will remove the roof. I will throw everything. Then let's go the other side and face the law. Government should do something about that law. The law, the tenants, they have upper hand over the landlords or landladies. Sure, you understand me? So government should do something about that. And at the same time, in the country we live today, we are still begging the same government. Every individual, as a citizen of your country, you need to have a roof of your own. Through mortgage, whether you are working under federal government, state government, or even when you are doing your own personal work, artisans. So you need to have a room so that all this embarrassment, maybe to the landlord or to the tenant, all those things will not be there.
It is very wrong for any landlord to throw his tenant things or property out, because when you are staying in a house, you are the owner of that house at that moment. So if you are facing difficulties in renewing your rent, at least the landlord should understand with you and give you some time. Throwing things out is a wrong idea. As a tenant, you should know your rights. If a landlord should come and throw your things out because you don't have the money to renew your rent, you have to go to the court of law, and I think that there are many bodies that will come to your aid to help you to get justice to that.
I wouldn't say it's right for a landlord to forcefully evict his tenant, but it's also his right. Like, it's kind of contradictory, but it's his right. He owns the house. He owns the right to do whatsoever he wants to do with it. But I don't think it is okay for him to forcefully evict. If he wants a particular tenant to leave his house, there are ways to go about it. But I don't think the method should be forceful.
It depends, but personally, I would say it's not right for a landlord to forcefully push out his or her tenants away. It's very, very wrong. If you have issue with the tenants, or if the house rent has expired and the tenant doesn't want to vacate the house, the right thing for you to do, maybe go to the appropriate authorities, maybe meet a lawyer, and a quick notice will be issued to the tenant, and a time will be given for such tenants to get his or her belongings out of the house. I believe that's the right way to do it.
No, it's not the right thing to do. A landlord is not supposed to eject his tenant from his house, really. If a tenant rentage has expired, you need to give him 3 months notice based on the Nigerian Constitution. You understand me? When you give him 3 months notice and he is not able to pay, you understand me? You take him to court. Court can also give him some extension. After that one, they will give him time notice. Court will give him time that they will actually come and ask him to bring his property out. But for a tenant to come out, for a landlord to ask the tenant to move out just because his rentage has expired, is not lawful, it's not proper. So I think government need to come into this scene because it's actually going rampant.
There you have it, voices on the streets as some Nigerian tenants narrate their eviction notice experience with their landlord. But ignorance, we are told, is not an excuse before the law. So with so much fiscal harassment and legal contention between landlords and tenants, what really are the legal ways to eviction? Well, let's find out from this report on tenancy regulation laws.
Over and again, stories have been told by tenants about landlords from hell, and always people live with the hope that they would never encounter them. For many landlords, despite doing everything possible to get good tenants, situations may still arise where a tenant is not cooperating, not paying rent as at when due, is outrightly disobeying or disrespecting rules of a legally binding tenancy agreement.
First of all, every agreement regulates the tenancy. Regardless of the fact that the law says a yearly tenant is entitled to 6 months. Where you go into a tenancy agreement and the landlord say your notice is 7 days, it remains 7 days because that is your agreement. It overrides the law. But where you do not have tenancy agreement in place, then the law regulates. That's the way it works. So if you give somebody a house and you don't serve him, because a lot of people evade tenancy agreements, forgetting that that is the document they should confront because that's what regulates your stay in the premises. So you should be very interested in reading through what is provided there. I remember the first tenancy a landlord ever gave to me. After I went through, I told him, this is not a tenancy agreement. It's a regulation to me on how I stay in your house, which I do not think I will sign. I said, no, if you want me to sign a proper agreement, do one, or I can do it for free because there are two sides to agreements. There's always an obligation and there is always a duty on both sides. So that's why it's called an agreement. So the two parties must agree. They must be at what the law calls addendum, meeting of minds, before they sign. But in most cases, experience has shown people just hurry into premises and at the end of the day, they now be at the mercy of the landlord. And trust our landlords who now treat their tenants like master-slave. They take advantage of it. But depending on the regulation of any tenancy, be it by agreement, by law, there is no such thing as you can walk into. It's called self-help. And I have seen situations where the courts have, a landlord took matter to court. And eventually, when the court found out that he was trying, because when you go remove somebody's window or pull down his roof, that's self-help. The judge abandoned the case he brought and did the self-help, awarded damages against him in his own premises.
Meanwhile, for some tenants, landlords just prove difficult, making decisions to renovate their houses and proceeding to evict their tenants without giving them adequate time. From the law's viewpoint, what is illegal eviction? Can eviction be contested? What is the proper procedure to evict a tenant?
Well, there are a series of what you may term, in your words, illegal evictions, which could arise in different ways. Like when once there is a land or a property, at times we see people evade other people's properties. Like you see even the madman on the streets goes into somebody's properties and start living there. You see a normal person walks into somebody's property, start living there. When the person wants to take over his property, for instance, how does he go about it? Since he did not put him there. The law protects even the trespasser. That kind of person is called the trespasser to the property. So the law provides that he should be given notice before you can evict him. When you serve that notice, assuming, forget about the fact of mentioning a lunatic. Say, let's take a normal person who walks into a property, walks in there and decides to inhabit there. When the landlord wants to take over, he still has to. And after serving that notice, if he doesn't go, the way to go is to go to court to evict him. That is legal way of evicting. Any other thing outside that would be what we call self-help. Because the law does not allow you to manhandle anybody. We are supposed to be a civilized nation. So all you need to do is, after you serve the notice and the man does not go out, you take the next step by filing processes in court and take him to court. If the court agrees with you, the man gets evicted.
There are strong indications that the nearest future holds more challenges for rent-paying Nigerians as the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic continues to bite hard economically, with landlords prepared to evict tenants who are unable to renew their rents promptly upon expiration.
While in the context of Nigerian law, as there are laws protecting the tenant, the landlord has laws protecting his rights under the Nigerian law too. As a tenant, make sure you read and fully understand the tenancy agreement given to you before signing. Welcome back. The program is Housing Development. The Association of Housing Corporation of Nigeria had a press conference with the theme, State of the Nation's Housing Address. Our correspondent was there.
The first Monday of October every year has been set aside to celebrate World Habitat Day. The purpose of World Habitat Day is to reflect on the state of our towns and cities and on the basic rights of all to adequate shelter. Joining their counterparts all over the world to mark the day, the Association of Housing Corporations of Nigeria had a press conference to reflect on the state of the nation's housing. Dr. Victor Onukwugha, President of the Council, in his address said to make housing affordable and accessible, his association has created an agri-village scheme project in all local governments across the country, where agriculture will be used to drive housing at both the local and rural level.
Ministries, both at the federal and state, have no business in direct construction. For us as an association, however, we have designed a program to change and revert the phenomenon of rural-urban migration to urban-rural migration by creating our flagship project named Agri-Villages, the Agri-Village scheme in all local governments, where we shall be using agriculture to drive housing at the local and rural level, thereby creating job opportunities for millions of jobless youths across the country. This will help to create new cities and reduce pressure on infrastructures on existing urban cities, and will assist in creating mass jobs for a greater percentage of unemployed youth and contribute to the nation's GDP.
While also noting that to make housing corporations self-reliant and self-sustaining, and also to assist to accelerate mass housing production in the country, a win-win model for all state housing corporations should be adopted.
As an institution, endowed with all the human and material resources required for a planned and sustainable land development, we are proposing a win-win business model for all state housing corporations, where all government lands earmarked for housing development invested on housing corporations as land bank for a planned and sustainable development. Under this proposed scheme, the model should empower housing corporations as commercial-oriented organizations to drive the proposition with a target and profitable mandate under 4 deliverables, namely direct real estate development, DRE, partnership real estate development, social housing estate development, technical services consortium.
Meanwhile, the president of Housing Development Advocacy Network, Festus Adebayo, while commending the AHCN for driving agri-villages as panacea for urban-rural migration, also called on synergy amongst all the housing corporations in the country.
You promise people housing, they will go to farm and do a lot of work. They will not need to come to the city And that is what Housing Corporation is saying.
The Association of Housing Corporations of Nigeria has instituted this annual Nation's Address to bring to the fore the situation of housing provision in Nigeria in order to help various levels of government to fashion out quality plans and programs to address the myriads of problems associated with housing in Nigeria.
Thank you so much for keeping a date. It was nice having you join us today on the program. For more of these, please visit Housing TV on YouTube and also follow us on all our social media platforms. I'll be here next week with a fresh edition of Housing Development and look forward to having you again. I remain Flora Annie, your Housing Diva. Do stay safe.